Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reverend Matt and I am the Connectionalist, and today we are going to be reacting to a video from Gavin Ortland about third wayism. So third wayism is basically this idea that you don't have to be super far right, super far left. Like, is there this kind of like place in the middle where we can all meet? And that's what Gavin Ortland is asking. He's talking about the people who've been, you know, what he says dunking, right? What the kids say, dunking on Tim Keller, who is kind of this third way, kind of moderate pastor. And in our age of very polarized politics, polarized theology, he's asking the question, I'm like, is this kind of Tim Keller type leadership, is it dead? Is it possible? Is third wayism still like viable? And I think that's the sense I'm getting. I've not watched the video. That's the sense I'm getting about what this video is about. So let's go ahead and dive right on in. Make sure you go like and subscribe, by the way, to Truth Unites. Gavin Ortland is the man. I love this guy. He is awesome. He has such a pastor's heart, and I love that. So let's go ahead and dive right on in. I'm going to move myself to the bottom right. Perfect.
How Christians relate to politics and culture war right now is a huge issue.
Yeah,
lots of people are
massive.
contrasting Tim Keller's approach, sometimes called the third way approach, with more bold approaches like Charlie Kirk's approach. That's been one construct you see. By the way, if you're going to do that, please take into account differences of calling and context. Tim Keller is a pastor in New York City, was a pastor and church planter. Charlie Kirk is more of a political and cultural and religious commentator doing debates on university campuses. He talks.
That's a huge distinction, is that people are like, if your pastor's not basically like doing like what Charlie Kirk did or like all this, then he's not a pastor. That's actually a person who is completely lost and doesn't understand the role of the pastor. The pastorate is not a job and a role, it's an office. And the office comes with responsibilities and a way of behaving. And the office comes with, you're a shepherd. And so you have to lead all sorts of different types of people. And so being a ideologue, which may be appropriate when you're a political commentator, right? Which, let's be perfectly frank, Charlie Kirk, a man of faith, cared deeply about his faith, talked a lot about his faith, but was primarily not a religious commentator, was primarily a political commentator, right? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a political commentator. But his role is that being ideologically driven and being an ideologue is appropriate when you're a political commentator, but it is not when you're a pastor, because that's an office that comes with historic responsibilities that are steeped in tradition and going back 20 centuries.
About theology as well, but he's got a different calling. You know, it's like, if you're going to compare these two people,
totally
it's
different.
like comparing, it's like saying, you know, Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan, look at them both playing golf. Wow, Tiger Woods is so much better. And you don't mention, you know, actually Michael Jordan wasn't mainly a golf player. He was in the NBA. He was a basketball player. That was his main thing. However, in this video, what I want to do is assume that you, the viewer, agree with the criticism of third way that is very popular right now. I mean, third way is, it's in tough days right now. And you think this is just, it's just your patience is totally done. That's the sense I get from people, is we just need to kill this, bury it, leave it behind, and even just mock it on the way as we're walking away from the grave. Just, you know, just nothing but contempt. That's what you get from some quarters. Others not that extreme. I try not to make the extremes representative of everybody, but there's real energy against this right now. I'm trying to understand that. But let me say this in this video. I'm going to assume it's correct, and I'm going to make 3 appeals for, if you're persuaded of that, could I appeal to you to do this as you're leaving third wayism dead in the gutter? Can you please hear these 3 appeals? And,
okay.
the spirit of this is, I think Christians can actually sometimes be of good faith and have disagreements about these questions, and how we conduct our disagreements matters for the sake of the kingdom of God. So hear me out, that, you know, even if we disagree, we can still maybe think about how we might, and I'll listen to your appeals too in the comments. Or if people make response videos, you know. Number 1, please don't caricature third wayism. If it needs to be critiqued, let it be critiqued at its best. If it needs to be exposed as bad and then killed and left behind, let it be exposed, killed, and left behind through steel manning, not through straw manning. I see a lot of rank caricatures of third wayism. The idea that it is moral equivalency, the idea that it means detachment, like we just avoid the issues, where it's cowardice, retreating, and so on and so forth. For years,
I think it can sometimes be that, but that's the straw man, right? The steel man is not that, right? The third wayism is basically, in some senses, saying, hey, on these secondary issues where there's ambiguity, maybe we shouldn't be ideologues and think everybody else who disagrees with us is evil.
proponents of third wayism and others like other constructs like this, if you don't like that language, fine, have been addressing this and clarifying this and saying this is not what it is. Tim Keller, for example, has always said it is not about finding a middle ground. It is about nothing other than following the Bible, no matter what, even if the world sees you as an extremist. Christopher Watkin wrote this excellent book, Biblical Critical Theory. It's very clear that third wayism is not splitting the difference between the major political parties that are currently operating. Not only is that not the way forward, that's actually wandering from the faith. Rather, the goal is nothing other than letting the Bible set the table. The Bible does not fit into the modern world. It will rearrange the furniture, so to speak.
I think a good example of this is like a lot of people are like, oh, third wayism is like, you know, it's dead and all this kind of stuff. But the issue is like, yeah, if you take the Bible on its own terms, these people are like, but the Bible says X, Y, Z. It's like, yeah, dude, the Bible says like, there might be, for instance, there's a conservative person out there who's like, the Bible says, you know, abortion's wrong, LGBT inclusion is wrong, and all these things. But then they're really mean to immigrants, and they think that the country's immigration policy is like we should not have any immigrants, and the Bible just says you're wrong. And the reason they don't like that is because they know they're wrong. Like the Bible is so clear on migrants, and then they do all this theological gymnastics that they accuse the progressives of doing. They accuse progressives of doing theological gymnastics to get out of calls from the Bible, and then they do it. It's so frustrating. Like it's the most frustrating thing. Then they twist themselves into 18 knots to get out of loving poor people or to get out of the humane treatment of migrants, right? So I guess what he's trying to say here is like third wayism at its core is letting the Bible speak for itself instead of letting your politics drive how you interpret the Bible, is instead to let the Bible drive how you view your life, how you view the world. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people right now.
Wax makes this point very clearly that we should not stay above the fray. We should not make it sound like there's moral equivalency between the two parties. There isn't. J.D. Greer, by the way, Griffin Gullidge is the one who drew my attention to that older article. All of these articles are years old. So you'd hope that people would interact with this stuff. It's been out there forever. But a lot of the ways you hear third wayism represented, you're like, that's not a, you can tell they're not trying to put it in a way that a proponent of this.
I had to take a second to think about that when they're like, there's no moral equivalency between the parties. I agree with that. I think one is particularly more evil than the other right now, and that's the Republican Party. I do. I believe that. And I don't believe that just because I'm a Democrat. I believe that because there's a lot of crazy stuff that the left is doing. But I look at the right and the authoritarianism, the white supremacy, failing to deal with white supremacy, all of these really, really scary things. But guess what? There's a lot of people on the other side of the aisle that think differently. They're like, no, the parties are not morally equivalent. The Democrats are more. And we've got to it's okay to it's okay to not do moral equivalency. Like it's okay to take a stand on where you believe. I think the problem is I wouldn't look at somebody who disagrees with me and thinks the Democrats are more evil and say that person is evil. They may be evil, in my opinion, but I'm not going to automatically say that because they disagree with me. And that, in a sense, is trying to find a third way where it's like, I disagree with you about these very deep issues, but I'm not going to let my heart be sharpened against you, which was the founder of the Methodist movement's advice for Christians in politics, was to vote, for who you deem as best and not let your heart be sharpened towards another. But that's just the honest truth, is like, there's somebody in the comments typing right now, instead of watching the rest of the video, they're right now typing in the comments, how could you think the Republicans are worse than the Democrats? I would not have said that 15 years ago. And I was probably mostly I was more 15 years ago. I was obviously probably more of a Democrat than I am today. When I was 18 years old, but something changed in the Republican Party over the last 10 to 15 years, and I think it's going down a very dark and scary place. I think the Democratic Party is completely lost. I don't think they get a lot of things. I think they do some evil things too. So I don't have a moral equivalency between the two. I think one is definitely worse than the other. But guess what? If you're watching this and you disagree with me, that's okay. Like, I don't automatically think you're evil because you disagree with me on that, because we see things from a different point of view based on our experiences, our cultural upbringing, all those kinds of things. And so when we talk to each other, we have to be able to stand firmly where we are, but not have our hearts sharpened. There's a lot of you who watch this who are very conservative, and you're able to watch my channel because you don't let your disagreements with me make you hate me. We just disagree on stuff, but we could still probably go to Chili's and split a triple dipper. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'd probably be fine going to Chili's and splitting a triple dipper, right? Like, that's the key to all this. But the problem is everything's been ratcheted up to volume 10,000, and everything's become a holy war. And once things become a holy war, compromise becomes impossible, because it's God is in the mix now, and like, my political opinion is God's political opinion. And once that happens, there's a great book by David Goldfield called America Aflame, and the whole thesis of the book is about how everything before the American Civil War broke down once the slavery issue became a righteous crusade both in the North and the South. That was the moment. That's the whole thesis of the book, is that was the moment in which the war was inevitable, because compromise became impossible in that moment. Now, I don't think we should compromise on slavery, right? But they were finding political solutions. Like, there was a compromise of 1820, the Missouri Compromise, and then the Compromise of 1850. So there were inadequate political solutions that were being found, but any hope of finding a political solution on the slavery issue in the United States ended when the issue became engulfed into the religious fervor of the country that was going on at the time. And that's what we have to be careful about, is not letting our disagreements with our brothers be whipped up into such a religious fervor that we think that it's permissible to kill them. That's what is, you look at things like Charlie Kirk being killed, right? Democratic politicians being killed. These are bad things for the kingdom of God. It's bad for society.
Could recognize. But I was going to say, Griffin Gullidge is the one who drew my attention to that older article of Trevin's in a tweet, and I thought he made a great point about the danger of a warmed over and politically flavored homogeneous unit principle. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Great insight there. J.D. Greear has an article up at the Gospel Coalition, and it's based on his new book where he talks about this, and he's very clear. It is not that both sides are morally equivalent. And he talks about the particular evils enshrined in the Democratic Party. If you disagree with all of these people, if you disagree with this whole way of thinking, fine, but interact with these clarifications.
But also call out your own party. See, that's what that is third wayism. True third wayism is saying, it's people that are conservatives. Look at me right now. Everybody watching this, look at me. Watch what I'm about to do. I think a lot of the stuff that Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader in the United States, the Democrat, has done are evil. And I also think Donald Trump is a deeply evil person, actually. Okay? Whoa. Oh my gosh. I can recognize the evils in both groups. That's not moral equivalency. I still think one is more evil than the other, right? I think there's more evil, there's more sin. I guess I should probably be more using sin than evil, because evil's a pattern of unchecked sin, and that's a different threshold, whatever. Throw that aside for a second. What I'm trying to say is, like, I saw J.D. Greer's quote. It's like, yeah, dude, like, you may just think the Democrats with, like, the sexual revolution and all this, you think they're the worst. but look at the president of the United States of America. Open your eyeballs. That's not moral equivalency. It's saying it's calling a spade a spade. It's calling balls and strikes. That's what I try to do on this channel. Call balls and strikes. I don't have a political agenda. I'm trying to call balls and strikes the way I understand my faith. Okay? And let me tell you something right now. When Barack Obama was elected president in 2008, I wore a President Obama t-shirt to school the next day. I loved Barack Obama, and I still have a great appreciation for him. His drone strike program, where he was killing American citizens in the Middle East, extrajudicial killings without trial, was deeply sinful and became evil because it was never repented of. Oh my gosh. I criticized a person I voted for. It is very possible to do that. And that's not true. That shouldn't just be true for our politics. It should be true with the theologians in the public sphere, right? Like Gavin Ortlund, guys, I love this guy, and I deeply disagree with him on theological issues. And I think this guy's awesome because I can see his heart. He's just trying to call balls and strikes the way here's the thing. You can see when people are authentic and intellectually honest and coming from, they're not grifting. Gavin Ortlund's not grifting. Gavin Ortlund is articulate and smart enough that if he wanted to grift and lie to you and whip up your rage, he would have double the subscribers he has, and he would have double the money flowing into his pockets right now. And that's what happens to a lot of the people that you watch on YouTube. I'm telling you right now. Myself, Gavin Ortlund, Redeem Zoomer, all these big people, they could get on the internet, and it's so easy to get on the internet and grift, and you make a bunch of money, get a bunch of subscribers because the algorithm loves grifters, okay? But one of the reasons I like Gavin Ortlund, and even though I have deep disagreements with him, is because I see his pastor's heart and his authenticity, and that's what we need more of. We need to look each other in the eye and talk to each other. Gavin Ortlund's a real person. J.D. Greear is a real person. Donald Trump's a real person. Chuck Schumer is a real person. I'm a real person, right? Hello, right? Like, that's why I'm clapping at the screen. I'm a real person. I'm not here to grift you, right? I'm trying to call balls and strikes based on how I understand my faith, okay? And how I understand the scriptures, right? And that's all any of us can do. But the problem, the reason that third wayism is dying is because grifting, where you just know you're lying. Like, I would classify Tucker Carlson, somebody like Tucker Carlson is like one of the ultimate grifters. On the left, I think Hassan Piker, you can Google it. I think he's kind of a left-wing grifter, right? Grifters are people who just like go for the most bombastic thing in order to get clicks, views, money, okay? And I think it's an evil practice. It's a sinful practice, right? Why I'm clapping at the screen is third wayism, friends, struggles right now because the money does not incentivize third wayism. The money incentivizes grifting. It incentivizes extremism and rage, which is why until the money and the algorithms from YouTube, the algorithms from Facebook and Instagram are regulated in a way in which the money incentives are not there for grifters, we will continue to have cultural and political upheaval in this country. We will. Because money, the love of money, greed is the root of all evil. Jesus taught that. The love of money is the root of all evil. I'm preaching about money right now in the church, and we're doing our stewardship campaign. The love of money is the root of all evil, friends. Okay? And so when the money structures, the financial incentives are there to grift, grifting will be the most common form of media you can watch. The grifters are everywhere. And I think people are pretty good these days. Hopefully, I think people are getting better at cluing in on who's grifting them and who's not. Okay, that's my rant. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Please watch the rest of this video.
Then continue to articulate third wayism as in a way that no one who holds to that would recognize. What is third wayism? In a nutshell, it is very simple. The thinking is this: contemporary conservative politics, especially in the United States, has important differences from historic Christianity. And even if those differences are not as dire as the political left, they are still important enough that they are worth pointing out.
Yep.
From our perspective, this is not really a third way. It's just the first way.
It's not a third way. It's just, let me zoom in. It's not the third way It's the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth as given by Christ. It's not a third way. It's not a third way to say, well, I think the Democrats are evil, but like, Donald Trump's also kind of evil. That's not a third way. It's just like, guys, humans do evil things. Politicians do evil things. It's trying to call balls and strikes. What team you're on doesn't matter, right? The church's job is to call out balls and strikes on morality to the culture. That's our job. That's part of our job. It's not our only job, but it's part of our job to point at power and say, that's wrong. That's an injustice. We're calling you to fix it. It's part of our job. And I'll do that to Democrats. I'll do it to Republicans. I don't care. I mean, I'm obviously like a center left kind of guy. I tend to vote for Democrats. I probably would have considered voting for a Republican, 10, 15 years ago, but not so much anymore because things have just gotten so extreme. But I think that's the important piece is that like I don't care who it is. I don't care. I'll call it out. You saw me do a video. I did a video a few weeks ago where Tim Kaine had that ridiculous, Senator Tim Kaine, the Democratic senator, had a ridiculous comment about where rights come from, that rights come from the government. I was like, no, they come from God, and it's up to government to secure those rights, right? So I'm just trying to call balls and strikes the way that I see it. And on some of this stuff, it's not too difficult to see. It's just people are afraid to call out their own side because they're afraid of getting canceled by their side, which affects their money, it affects their power, it affects their influence. And guess what? I'm afraid of that too, and so are you. Everybody's afraid of that because we want to be liked, we want to have power, we want to have influence. That's a part of our original sin. And so a lot of these big pastors, these big names, they're scared to do it. And I'm not like faulting them too much for that because I understand that like the normal human desire, like you don't want to make your congregation mad, you don't want to make them upset, but it's not third wayism, it's just the truth. Just the truth. Okay.
Want to follow Jesus, and it is that simple.
It's that simple.
Second appeal, and this flows right out of that, is beware of the no enemies to my right mentality. Now, most of you get this. Most good faith people who disagree with me on these questions, thank you.
What he means by no enemies to my right is like, even though these people are far, I think what he's going to mean is like, even people like he's saying, if you're on the right wing of politics, if there are people further to your right, they're not my enemy because at least they're on my side. What he's saying is, no, that's stupid because there are deeply evil people on the right. So Ben Shapiro, who's a popular conservative commentator, I actually watch him quite a bit, even though I disagree with him, has been talking about this a lot, where he was like, guys, if we don't police the crazy stuff going on the far right now, we're going to start losing political influence, right? Like he's not wrong about that because this principle of no one to my right is my enemy is crazy.
Truly, thank you. You agree with this, you get this, you're not going to push back on this point, most of you. But what I think is more dangerous is those who will say, and maybe you've been feeling this already, is, okay, yeah, that's true. Technically, there's some bad stuff on the right, but it's not a big deal. There's a few people over there that need a nudge, but that's not the real threat. Stop putting the focus, stop acting like this is something that's big that we need to talk about, and so on and so forth. And let me make an appeal, if that's how you feel. I understand. First, I would just say, we got to remember, all of us are.
He's going to be like, first, I'm just going to say you're wrong, right? But Gavin is very pastoral, and I appreciate that.
Are affected by the algorithms, all of us.
Yep.
Okay. So all I'm saying from this point is we need to listen to each other for the experiences others have had. Believe me, if you can, believe me, I really am trying to listen, and I'm learning from people who disagree with me. I'm saying, okay, I got to see the world through their eyes.
Yeah, the more I've been on YouTube, the more I'm trying to do this. I'm really trying to see the world the way the conservatives see it. I think I'm doing and when I say the conservatives, I should really qualify that. I'm trying to see the world the way conservative theologians see the world. And I'm doing my best to do that. And I actually think over the last year or so, I've softened my heart towards conservatives in my own church. Through that process, and I think that's a good thing. And I invite my conservative brothers and sisters to do the same to people who are liberal, or who are more progressive or left or whatever the word you want to use, because we have to open our hearts and minds to each other. because that's what love looks like, is first to understand. Like, you may want to correct somebody because you think they're wrong, but you can't correct somebody that you're misunderstanding.
What experiences have you had? But the algorithms tend to confirm our biases.
Yep.
And so we need to be aware of, okay, I got to listen to what other people are saying because it might not all be coming up on my feed. I might think something's not a big deal because I don't see it, but the reason I don't see it, I'm not omniscient. It may not be served up to me through the algorithm. Many of us in real life have had pastoral experiences, church experiences, and relational experiences that convince us that, yes, there are some things on the right that are a problem. There are various forms of overreaction against wokeness, unhealthy forms of hypermasculinity working out in a marriage relationship that's really toxic and bad, undersensitivity to the sin of racial prejudice, including even anti-Semitism, explicitly so in some circles.
This is, I think, one of the deeper sins of the far right, is like, racial prejudice doesn't exist. That's insanity. It's insanity. Like, you have to be completely deluded to think racial prejudice doesn't exist. I really do. I'm sorry if that's you and I just called you deluded, but you got to open your eyes. Like, it's a huge problem. It has been for a long time. Do I think the Democrats use it as an excuse and overplay it? I think they do sometimes, but the idea that it's not a problem at all is just wild to me. I don't understand that.
I wish I could say these were small problems that don't even merit mentioning.
But they're not.
But unfortunately, especially spending time on the internet, interacting with young men, seeing what they're being influenced by, yes, these are real issues. Let me mention two that I think are particularly increasing and need to be addressed.
And see, first, I'm even being convicted as I'm watching this because I'm like, it's completely diluted. And I shouldn't talk to people who disagree because I'm trying to get through to you. If you're watching and you disagree, I'm trying to get through. I shouldn't say completely diluted. I'm trying to learn to walk this fine line of like being authentic to myself and my own opinions, but also being pastoral as well. And Gavin does a really good job at that. I actually really look up to Gavin in that sense because he does a really good job at this. But that's the better thing to say. Look, it's real. You may not think it's real, but it is. It is real.
It's the sheer amount of lack of charity in discourse.
Yeah.
There is a real viciousness to the way discussions happen. And in online spaces right now, especially on X, the cancel tactics of the far left are being mimicked in the reverse direction by the far right.
Yep.
And there's a certain demographic of people that will swarm and then seek to utterly discredit a person.
Yep.
And the people being targeted are often...
By the way, I hated that when the left was doing that. Like, hated it. It was the cancel stuff, the swarming and eating their own kind of stuff. And then, because the right criticized it, and now they've adopted it. Over the last couple of years, they're doing it themselves. Yeah.
Pretty conservative. But they represent a threat or a challenge in some way or another, and so they are effectively canceled. It's ugly. It's not edifying. It's not constructive. There's a lot of name calling, pretty gross and sexual insults at times. And then those things get defended as though that was courageous. And a lot of times there's just sheer lying and slander that is utterly disgraceful.
Yeah.
And it's totally appropriate to say, I'm broadly historically conservative. I'm pro-life. I'm going to stand against the far left. I just want to be a faithful Christian. But I'm allowed to talk about these problems on the right, these sins of speech, for example, this lack of charity and disagreement, and not shrug that off. If I were to shrug off sins of speech as though they're...
Because Gavin, while we disagree, is intellectually honest. He's intellectually honest. That's why he's not shrugging off, because he knows it's wrong, and he's trying to call a spade a spade.
Not a big deal. I would be going against about 1/3 of the New Testament. Read James chapter 3, for example, about how the tongue can send you to hell.
Yeah.
Think about the words of our Lord, who is saying, when you insult your brother, you're liable to the fire of hell. Okay? We are allowed to take this seriously.
That's very convicting, right, to me, right? Like, this is something I've had to work on my whole life. I'm very opinionated. I'm pretty outspoken, always have been. I've gotten better about this, mostly, I think, not from just... I think, honestly, you get better with age. I think age... You make enough stupid mistakes by flapping your jaw at somebody. Yes, you learn to stop flapping it. And you learn when to open your mouth and when to not. And I think that just comes with age and time. And I think Gavin's ahead of me on this because he's a faithful pastor who's about 10 years ahead of me. And so he's got some more experience. He does really well. So this is something I'm trying to really be convicted by myself, right? And be careful how I talk about people. I have some I think where a lot of it comes from is this anger with intellectual dishonesty, which is where my anger comes out sometimes in these videos or in my ministry. Is like I have to pick the right times to be angry, because sometimes my anger is going to be justified towards intellectual dishonesty, grifting, those kinds of things. I'm definitely not going to hold back, and I'm going to say what needs to be said. But sometimes all of us have the tendency, especially people who are commenting on the online space, the tendency to get a little overly bombastic. And this text from Matthew 5 is very convicting, and from James as well, right? But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. It's crazy, right? Like that's a biting text. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says "you fool" will be liable to the hell of fire. Yeah.
When our Lord is saying this can send you to hell, and if I may be blunt, those kinds of sins of speech are playing out, escalating
Every day
in our online discourse.
Yep.
We have a major issue. This is not a small matter. How we talk to each other matters. Just to speak vulnerably, when I put out a video on these topics, it is shocking. The emails I will get, the things that people will clip out and try to spin this.
I'm glad he's being vulnerable, because I just got done being kind of vulnerable with you. Like, this is something I'm working on. I've been praying about a lot. Like, how do I take my pastoral role, which I think I don't do a terrible job of on here, right? But like, how do I really make sure I'm being careful with my speech on here? Because I do have influence. It's small compared to some of these other people, but I do have influence not only to my congregation, but to the people who watch. So I'm glad he's being vulnerable and talking about like some of the messages he's been getting. Like, I get comments on the videos or on my Twitter that are like, it's wild. Like, I had a tweet go viral one time, and I had people being like you're bound for the pit of hell, nasty threats, violent threats. I've had people threaten me violently, not only online, but actually through notes. I've had notes dropped at my church that were not quite threatening violence, but were disturbingly written to the point where like they were veiled threats of violence. So this is real stuff, guys. It's real stuff.
This way and that way and so forth. There is slander. It is a problem. It's okay to take that seriously and try to address it. Another issue is the constant separating and fighting and being suspicious of other people over secondary and tertiary doctrines.
Yeah.
This is increasing in the world, not decreasing. It's a problem on the right. It's a problem we need to address. We're allowed to take this seriously. So historically, in fundamentalist circles, you can look back 80 years and see how this would happen with other issues.
Mm-hmm.
The timing of the rapture, the nature of the rapture, its relation to the tribulation, something like this. Okay, we can look back with 80 years of perspective and
The rapture is not real. It's not a biblical idea.
say, they probably shouldn't.
Just a heads up. You can believe that. It's a tertiary issue. I'm not going to be too angry at you about it. I'm just going to let you know I don't think it's a biblical idea at all. It's not real.
Have like splintered their whole movements over these kinds of differences. But we're doing that again today. And I think one of the big areas is this one, over politics. That's what I'm trying to say. Whatever else we do, can we stop being so much at each other's throats over these kinds of issues? There's this all or nothing package deal way of thinking. That's what comes in. It's the same kind of thing with the pre-trib versus post-trib rapture, but now it's political issues. So for me, if I'm passionately pro-life, which I am, I would give my life for that in a heartbeat. If I defend a traditional view of marriage as between one man and one woman, which I do, tomorrow I'm flying to a conference to speak on that. But if I believe in climate change, which I also do, then now I'm the enemy.
Right.
It's like, you're down the line, stepped out of line, banish them from the camp. It's this kind of way of thinking. And it's the same fundamentalist mindset that just won't allow for critical thought and making distinctions and having a sense of proportion. The very word nuance is now seen as a bad word in some circles.
It's like the people saying empathy is a bad thing, right? It's like, how did we get to where empathy is seen as a bad word? It's crazy.
And so the appeal that I would make for people today, especially people like good faith people who are kind of sorting their way through this and disagree with me, and you're saying, yeah, third wayism is bad, we need to bury that and move forward. Okay, fine. Please hear this appeal. Please don't stop addressing problems like this on the right. Okay? Let's revive a historic evangelicalism, not create a new fundamentalism. Historic evangelicalism was a balancing act between different alternative errors. What people like Billy Graham and Carl Henry and Harold John Ockenga were explicitly trying to do is say no to the liberals over there, but also no to the fundamentalists over there. They both have problems. We need to fight in multiple directions. Some of us feel a similar kind of mindset right now. Third appeal, and that this flows out of that, is historical perspective. This can really help us right now. It can calm and helpfully complicate the current dialectics and fractures that are like fizzling up right now. So, and it just will help our disagreements go better. Let me just give an example. Most Christians today like C.S. Lewis. Not everybody, but most people think, hey, C.S. Lewis, he's a good guy. He's on our team. If C.S. Lewis were alive today, he would be tarred and feathered by both the right and the left.
It's true. Let's go back because
he's a good guy.
Let's go back. I had to fix my camera.
He's on our team. If C.S. Lewis were alive today, he would be tarred and feathered by both the right and the left. That is the polarized world we live in. That is a fact. We know why the left wouldn't like him. He's an Orthodox Christian. He believes in a very traditional view of sexuality. He's constantly, actually explicitly warning against progressivism. Read a book like that, Hideous Strength. He talks about that a lot. My favorite book. Talks a lot about, I mean, just the basics of the whole tenor of his thought. This emphasis upon humility before God. Okay, that's, he's going to get into trouble in a lot of circles for those things. But on the other hand, it can help give some historical perspective for us today to remember C.S. Lewis believed in evolution. C.S. Lewis rejected biblical inerrancy and accepted some of the findings of critical biblical scholarship. He said things that sounded very third way-ish. He was a very expansive, generous thinker. He drew on philosophy and literature outside of the strictly evangelical canon.
See, like C.S. Lewis accepted parts of biblical inerrancy, and I'm not even necessarily a rejecter of biblical inerrancy myself. I'm probably like in between C.S. Lewis. I'm probably further to the right on C.S. Lewis. I would be uncomfortable doing that. But like C.S. Lewis would always be called more conservative than me. But that's just not really the case. I'm conservative. I'm conservative on many things, orthodox on many things, but also considered progressive on some things for different reasons, right? So we have to just be very careful and get some perspective. I think that's very wise.
He invited people into a vision of the Christian life that is much larger and much richer and much more expansive. And I don't agree with him on all those things. I do believe in biblical inerrancy myself, for example. I'm not saying you have to agree with C.S. Lewis on those points. My point is this. It can help induce a little bit of clarity on the heat of the moment and the intensity of our disagreements today. If you remember, if you want to, again, the appeal to the person who doesn't see things as I do, you don't like third wayism. If you remember, there's a lot of C.S. Lewis-ish Christians, if I said that right, who are alive today, and they are not your enemy. You can disagree with them. But again, the sense of proportion, they're acting in good faith. They're seeking the truth. Actually, by the way, if you disagree with C.S. Lewis on some of those things I just mentioned, I'm sorry, but if I may say, please don't just arrogantly dismiss him. He's a smart, sincere person. He came to his...
Don't outright dismiss C.S. Lewis. You want me to know why? I'll give you the best reason why. Most likely, C.S. Lewis is smarter than every single person watching this video. That's probably the best reason not to dismiss him outright. The arrogance to just dismiss like somebody like C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien outright. These are brilliant, brilliant people, some of the smartest people of the 20th century. It's like you're just arrogant to dismiss them outright.
Views on all those topics for particular reasons. Even there's a need for humility and engagement to understand and then disagree. So if you want to bury third wayism, the appeal that I'm making here is, what are you going to build in its place? Are you building an environment in which C.S. Lewis would get tarred and feathered and run out of town as a woke liberal? And if you don't like C.S. Lewis, you can substitute a lot of historic Christians. That's the whole thing we're saying is, if you read, there's a lot of ignorance of church history. If you read church history, you see, okay, yeah, in the current polarized landscape, a lot of Christians, even some historic fundamentalists, wouldn't fit in. That's what we're wrestling with. Some people have genuinely not come to understand how complicated some of these disagreements are.
Yeah.
And the casting nuance as a bad idea is not helping us. Let's build something better. Let's build something that looks like Jesus. Let's build something that is marked by both truth and grace. Let's build something that is vigorous against error, but also thoughtful and recognizable to church history.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you disagree with everything I just said in this video, can we at least have conversations about this where we're not at each other's throats? Can I put out a video like this, get on a plane tomorrow, and not have to deal with what has happened the last 6 times I've traveled, and that some controversy blows up, somebody's attacking me on X, and then I'm getting texts about it, and I'm having to clarify my position and this kind of thing because of slander?
Nope. Won't happen. We can pray for it, but it won't happen. And I think that's something Gavin Ortland tweeted recently, and something I'm getting used to being in the more public space on YouTube is like, people are going to persecute you. They're going to say mean things about you. But, you know, what the Lord teaches is like, when you're trying to teach the truth from your perspective the best you can, like, don't get caught up in the persecution, the naysaying, and all that kind of stuff. Some of it may be legitimate, but most of it's usually not. It's just people that are trying to be antagonistic, you know? If you're trying to spread the truth, if you're trying to spread the good news of Jesus Christ, and people are coming after you all the time, just count it as joy.
Because of lies. That's not the way, no matter what, no matter who's right and who's wrong. Even if every word I've said in this video is wrong,
right,
that's not helpful.
Right, exactly.
So what I'm saying is, let's try to build an environment where where good faith disagreements about the right political posture can at least talk, because even that is evaporating right now. I'll leave you with this passage. I have this printed on the mirror. Think about it every day before I record a video. My wife just reminded me of it. This is the way we want to point our sails and move into if we are followers of Jesus. 2 Timothy 2:23-25, Paul says, have nothing to do with foolish, ignorant controversies.
Yep.
There is a time to avoid discussions. He says, you know they breed quarrels. There's a lot in the pastoral epistles about avoiding quarrels. And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone, able to teach, patiently enduring evil, correcting his opponents with gentleness. Let's do the correcting. Let's do the contending for the truth.
Which is funny because that's something Paul sometimes himself struggled to do. He was very brash. Often, I think he would even admit probably that he wasn't always the best at that, but he knew that that was still the correct teaching. And that's something I'm trying to learn to do every day. I'm trying to be kind on here. I have deep disagreements with some of you sometimes, with some people that I watch. And sometimes it comes across maybe that I'm not being kind, and that happens, but I'm doing my best to be kind. But sometimes I have some really passionate, deep disagreements. So I think this is kind of a message for all of us.
But there's a lot in the New Testament that corresponds to those words: gentleness, kind to all, patient. A lot of our discourse now does not look like that. Those are some of the issues on the right we're seeing. Of course, you also see them on the left. That's the point. That's the point. And all we're saying is we want to follow Jesus. We want to obey 2 Timothy 2. And I know others who disagree with the goals of this video feel the same. So that's where we got to keep talking.
I think that's pretty much the end of the video. So look, here, the bottom line is, do you think third wayism is dead? Let me know what you think in the comments. I think this is a message for all of us. Before you go to the comments, remember that verse from 2 Timothy, right? To be kind, to be gentle. I'm trying to ride that fine line between firmness and gentleness in my correction when I feel like I have to get on these videos and correct behaviors, correct things I'm seeing going on in the culture. I'm trying to be gentle and kind from my perspective on that. I'm trying to grow in that right now. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know how you've been trying to grow in that. I love to read the comments. If you liked my commentary today, make sure you go like and subscribe to my channel. It's the best way that you can help a young growing channel like mine. Also, make sure you go like and subscribe to Truth Unites. Gavin Ortland does awesome work. But I'm River Matt, and I'm the Connectionalist, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.